Thank you so much. It's so great to be here with fellow marketers at DigiMarcon. Um, I wanted to start off by sharing a little bit of who IHG is, because I feel that maybe some people in the audience may think that IHG is a bank. But actually, the Intercontinental Hotels Group is a hospitality brand, and we have 12 different brands within our family. So you may be more familiar with the Crown Plaza or Holiday Inn or Holiday Inn Express. So those were all within our family. And in Canada, we have 175 hotels from coast to coast. But we are also growing. We have 31 hotels in the pipeline that will be opening in the next 2 to 3 years. So it's quite a busy time for us. Now, a little bit about myself and a little bit about what I'm speaking about today. And I'm really happy that I actually went after Matt, because I feel that our presentations really gel well together about storytelling. But my background is I actually have worked at different PR and marketing agencies, as Amanda mentioned. And I'm really privileged within this role that I actually get to travel across Canada working with these great hotel brands. But previous to that, some of the Canadian brands who I've worked with are Loblaw Companies Limited, Good Life Fitness, and most recently with the Toronto 2015 Pan Am Para-Pan Am Games, a role which was quite a marathon, literally. Now, the underarching kind of theme that I've experienced in all of these roles is storytelling, and it's manifested itself in a different way always. So, for example, telling the stories of executive chefs and their creations into the next PC must-try product, storytelling of weight loss transformation and health changes with Good Life Fitness, and then my personal favorite, the stories of telling about athletes overcoming their own personal adversities to represent their country on the world stage. And the stories that have worked the best and the ones that have, gone viral or have received the most amount of impressions are the stories that had a personal connection. One that was memorable and one that was shareable, something that, you want to send to your mom and dad being like, hey, take a look at what this is. So I'm going to chat a little bit today about how you actually obtain that. So we're going to look at the why, the how to, the who to engage with, and then I'll talk a little bit and give you a little bit of some examples of how we practice this at IHG. And let's kick it off with this example here, Winnipeg. Anyone here from Winnipeg? Woohoo! One person, great. So we we have 4 wonderful Holiday Inn properties in Winnipeg. And unfortunately, they weren't getting as much traffic as we wanted to. So we wanted to really work with a third-party content provider and chat about why Winnipeg is such a fabulous place to visit. So the content provider who we work with is Family Fun Canada. They're an online group of mommy, travel bloggers, lifestyle bloggers. And as you can see here, they have written this post about the wonderful Human Rights Museum in Winnipeg. Has anybody visited? It's a state-of-the-art building, world-renowned. I didn't know about it previous to this campaign, so I'm always learning new things. But as you can see here, they told a story about visiting Winnipeg, travel destination, or it as a destination in itself, because Winnipeg may not be your number one go-to spot. And they were able to weave in the story of staying with the Holiday Inn, or staying at a Holiday Inn, in particular the Holiday Inn Winnipeg Polo Park, which is a great property. But it was really through that we were able to tell our brand story through this relationship. Now, before we start, telling all of our stories, we have to really see why we're actually doing this. So as marketing people here, one of our main objectives may be to grow engagement on our social media channels. And I always say that working with third-party content creators is a great way to do this, because the bloggers or influencers who you're going to be working with, they already have a large mass of community. They have thousands upon thousands, maybe 1 million followers. And by going to them, you're actually amplifying your content further. similar when it comes to paid and earned media impressions. So I come from the earned world. And when I'm working with a third-party content provider or a spokesperson on my campaigns are able to excel even further because whoever I'm working with has that notoriety and has that audience kind of built into them. And then purchase intent. So raise your hand if you're trying to sell a product or you want to increase your purchase intent. That should be everyone here. We're trying to sell something, right? We're trying to sell cars. We're trying to sell lipstick. We're trying to sell weight loss, for example. Now, what's interesting, and you can see from the statistics here, is that purchase intent actually increases by 5.2% when someone sees a brand tweet about something or an influencer tweet about something. So we'll talk a little bit later about trust, but really that in itself is pretty huge. The fact that an individual really trusts an influencer on Twitter and a brand when they see someone tweet about it. And then lastly is the SEO value, which is a space that I'm trying to move into and understand more. But the basic concept here is that if you have really great content and quality links coming back to your own website, your SEO value will increase. And I'll talk a little bit more about how you can get bloggers or third-party content creators to help improve SEO coming back to your website or online spaces. Now, speaking about the why, let's talk a little bit about the how and what's your story. I know Matt chatted a little bit about this as well, but I'm always reminded as a PR person that gone are the days when you could actually send journalists or bloggers product and have them actually just tweet and write about it. Those were the good old days, right? Now there's actually skeleton staffs, and I hope my presentation here doesn't scare you with this graphic, but there's actually skeleton staffs in our newsrooms, and that's how we used to previously tell our stories, by getting our product out there. But because the skeleton staffs are there in the newsrooms, we're more so having to use these third-party content providers to tell our story. So it's not only our story, but it's really the micro story. And what I mean by micro story is those stories that are 30 seconds long, that someone's just going to look at their mobile device and be like, huh, okay, that's that, and carry on with their day. No one's sitting there. I mean, maybe some people are, but flipping through the newspaper and like reading different stories. They want those quick, instantaneous stories. Now, that being said, before you just go run out the doors and start creating your online magazines, I really challenge you to sit down like this with your teams and brainstorm what your story is, because it would be really sad to kind of create a great online magazine or an app with great content and have it be a one and done deal that you never see again. Your story should be something that lives on this quarter, next quarter, and 2 to 3 years from now. So please don't start just creating content for the sake of creating content. So the who. So I know I've said, influencers and bloggers, but what does that really mean? Now, that's what worked for me in the past, but it may be different because of your business objectives or your brand objectives. But it could be the media, journalists, local celebrities, bloggers in your industries, really great to work with because they're already writers and they kind of know already what you want to speak about. But then there's also your own personal consumers, and that's probably one of my favorite people to work with. These are people who are loyal customers, maybe first-time customers, individuals who you could tell a testimonial about or a case study about. Has anybody used testimonials or case studies before in their marketing tactics? Great for SEO value. Not only that, but your consumer feels so much more engaged with your brand when they've asked to try a testimonial or when their tweet has been used in a campaign. So it's a really great way to market something. And then again, there's always athletes or celebrities as well who you could use to endorse your brand. And then there's also this guy. Does everyone know who this guy is? Hands up, dark guy. Okay. Do we have any Toronto Maple Leafs fans in the house? Any Habs fans? Habs fans, the door's right there. Yeah, the Senators are doing very well as well. So this is Dart Guy. And for those of us, or those of you in the audience who don't know who Dart Guy is, Dart Guy rose to fame a couple of weeks ago during the NHL playoffs, the Washington Capitals versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he had, as a Toronto fan from southwestern Ontario, he had gone down to the Washington game, and he was like super into it. He was like so stressed out, as we all were when we were watching the games. And he was actually caught on TV with a cigarette in his mouth. Dart being the short slang for cigarette. And he became like an instant overnight celebrity. He was on broadcast sites, and he was all over Twitter. And he got free tickets to the Leafs games because they thought he was like a good luck charm, and he turned out not to be, but that's okay. And what I loved about this is Nicorette, as you could see here from this example, them being a stop smoking provider or brand, they actually started running Twitter ads in real time, like 2 to 3 days later after he became successful, talking about how they were going to challenge Dark Eye to stop smoking. Like, how amazing is the story? I'm like, I should have thought about this, but I'm not going to use Dark Eye. He's not related to hotels. But I thought it was a great example of real-time marketing. And I heard on the news last week that he's actually on his way to quitting smoking. And they're telling that story of how he's used Nicorette products. So kudos to you wherever you are, Dark Guy, to quitting smoking. Okay, so we have our story. Let's envision that we've sat down and we've brainstormed, and now we have our story. How do we go about telling that brand story? So I personally, from a PR perspective, love working with influencers and bloggers. It's really my cup of tea. And so this kind of tells you the steps you would go about to engaging the influencers. And the first thing you would do is pitch them. And our bloggers and influencers in this day and age are very savvy. You could be working through a talent agency or their assistant, but sometimes the bloggers that you'd be working with, especially here in Canada, I find, they just have rules of engagement straight on their channel. They say, hey, marketers, this is what I'm looking for. Send me your product to this address or Dropbox or whatever it is. So it's pretty much well known. The other thing I would say is to build a relationship with them. I mean, this is my example from this weekend. I was just on Twitter. We use this lady, Tamara Elliott. She's fantastic. She is a travel blogger. She's based in Calgary, and she's on Global News quite often speaking about her travels. And, she posted this photo of a photo shoot that she's doing, and I love cobalt blue, that color. And she posted the photo, and I said, you look beautiful. And we're not working with her right now, but I want to continue to maintain those relationships with those people to keep the conversation and our relationship with them really authentic. The other thing you should do as well is brief them on your topic. Be very transparent in terms of what you want from them. If you want certain keywords to be mentioned in their content, if you want a certain product to be featured, if you want your logo to be placed in a certain way when they take their photos or what have you, be very transparent with them and have those discussions up front, because it will save you time and effort down the line. The other thing I do often is create short brand briefing guidelines for them. And these are just PowerPoint presentations that I give to them, and it has like our quarterly earnings in them or media releases or photos that they can use. And by doing this, you're equipping them with what they need to represent your brand, and they're not going to, the ether and trying to like figure it out. So brief them, actually have a phone call, meet them in person if you can, have a coffee, and build the experience for them. Give them an arsenal to work with. And then my favorite point is pay them. Now, when I started my career back in the day, we didn't really need to pay bloggers, but now we actually do need to pay them. At IHG, we typically pay our blogger, depending on their size of their audience, $500 to $2,000 is the max I've paid actually a blogger. And that being said, contracts are very important, and I will talk about contracts a little bit later. Now, that being said, okay, so we got the how, we got the who, we got the why. What are some key principles if we're doing this well? The first thing I would say is to make it as authentic as possible. As branders, as marketers, we kind of have this way of thinking our brand is represented. For a luxury brand, we want people to use really big words and make it seem really suave. But that's not maybe how the blogger is actually writing. Maybe they're a millennial blogger that, uses really like short form of words. You have to go with the way that the person who you're working with is writing. Same with the second point, of it being very conversational. I don't want to read something on Twitter that sounds really brandy. You want it to be very conversational and very everyday speak, if you will. And then visual. I think this is a pretty obvious one, but a lot of the bloggers that we work with, we ask them, in the contract again, we ask them for a certain amount of photography of theirs that is going to become ours when the campaign is over. And all of them, shoot, with beautiful photography and videos. So that should always be the top of mind for you. And then lastly, the point of it being memorable. And I mean, this is a bit of a challenging one, and this is where their creativity comes in, but ensuring that the message that you put out there is quite memorable and shareable. Now, what to watch out for. So red flags. So you have to really make sure that you have disclaimers now at the top of your third-party content, or you will get severely penalized. I know this from working very close with my US counterparts. They have certain guidelines. It's now in Canada, hashtag ad, hashtag sponsored on the content pieces. I put up here bad reviews, but I didn't really mean bad reviews. I meant more so honest content. You're talking to people who are very opinionated, let's say that. You're talking to, bloggers and influencers who are very opinionated, and you're giving them your product. Now, expect to see some criticism back because they're regular people, how they're experiencing your product. When I receive negative or critical kind of reviews back, and people have posted online about that, I bring it back to the hotel and talk about ways that we can improve on that. You cannot tell the person not to write bad things because, again, that's not being authentic. And then lastly, fake reviews. So fake reviews scare me as a marketer. I've had bloggers come to me and say, hey, Michelle, we'll review your hotel on Amazon, or sorry, not Amazon, on TripAdvisor, to help your TripAdvisor scores. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really sound authentic. That sounds pretty scary, and you can get penalized. Not only that, but your consumers know when you're putting up a fake testimonial, and it's just no, just don't do it. Big no-no. And then contracts. I spoke about this earlier, but make sure to get in writing exactly what they owe from you and what you owe them, and timelines surrounding that. So let's talk about some examples. Let's get into the fun part. Amber Mack. How many people here know Amber Mack? She's a Canadian. She's brilliant. She's a woman, a great spokesperson. She does keynotes everywhere. She normally speaks about technology. That's her thing. She speaks about technology and products. And we wanted to tell the brand story of Holiday Inn Express in our sleep campaign. So we reach out to Amber, and she's traveling a lot. She stays at a lot of hotels. Luckily, she loves staying at Holiday Inn Express properties. And we came to her and we said, how's your sleep stay when you're at the properties? And she's like, it's horrible. Like, I mean, it's hard to sleep at a hotel sometimes. Like, you don't have your Snuggie bunny to hold on to or whatnot, however you sleep. But she was saying that her challenges, jet lag, mixed with other challenges that she had. So we're like, well, why don't we come up with some tips? And I did this alongside Hill & Knowlton Strategies, which is our PR agency. We came up with some tips of how you can best experience sleep when you're at your hotel. And it was phenomenal. I mean, you could just see the coverage that we got picked up here. She had fitness as her routine when she goes into her hotel room, turning off your screens 2 hours before you try to go to sleep, which is nearly impossible when you're at a hotel room. And we got great earned media coverage, as you can see here. Not only that, but all of these photos that you see here that Amber has profiled were actually used by us on our social media channels on the Holiday Inn Express account. And as you can see here, they're so personal. It's her taking selfies, working at a Holiday Inn Express on a computer. And my personal favorite, she was at the Holiday Inn Express in Huntsville with her son, and she visited Arrowhead Park there up in Huntsville, and she wrote about, her great stay at the Holiday Inn Express and profiled her son. And I was like, wow, that's a really personal thing to do, to show photos of your children on your social media channels and connect it to a brand. So it was like, yeah, go Amber. That was really great. She's awesome to work with. And for my final example, I want to talk about Canada. And I talked a little bit about themes when it comes to your content. And one of the big things we have in Canada going on right now is Canada's 150th birthday. When we were doing our research and wanted to build a brand story around Canada's 150th birthday, we actually found that Canadians don't want to travel to Canada. When they think about their vacations, they want to travel to the United States or to Europe. So we're like, how can we tell the story of Canada and how awesome Canada is? So we decided to launch a contest. And we launched a contest with Jennifer Valentine. Jennifer Valentine used to be on breakfast television for 25 years in Toronto, and now she's a radio host on Q107. She's awesome to work with, and the story we're telling is about hidden gems. So finding the what is in your backyard, and through a user-generated contest, what is in your backyard, and getting these contest entries for a chance to win 1 million IHG Rewards Club points. So that was the contest in a nutshell, and that's the content story that we're trying to build. We thought we would get about 300 entries for a 3-month contest. At this point now, the contest isn't closed, so everyone, I'll tweet out the link and you could go and enter the contest. As of right now, we have over 4,000 entries into the contest, so it's been quite phenomenal. What we are left with is all this great content now that we could share out to our hotels and individuals. So following this, when the contest closes on May 31st, I'm going to be doing a native ad campaign on all the content we have. My favorite being this heart-shaped pond here. How beautiful is that? The heart-shaped pond, and all the women are like, oh, a heart-shaped pond in Halifax, Bedford. We happen to be 6 minutes away from our Halifax, Bedford Holiday Inn Express. Like, brilliant. So we're going to give that content over to that property, and they're going to tell the tourists and guests as they come in to check out that heart-shaped property. Now, I hope this will play so I could show you how to fold a fitted sheet. Okay. Give me ones. Yay, technology. Okay. So I'm going to talk over this, and Amanda queued me up really well, but our Holiday Inn Express Ottawa West created this video in their basement. That's where all the housekeepers actually go and fold fitted sheets, and they did it on an iPhone. And I mean, who hates folding fitted sheets? I mean, they have that elastic band around them. You have to try to fold them, and I just crumple it up like this and I throw it in my closet. But they created this video, and I mean, I was just amazed by, first of all, the quality of it. I know, it's like poof, it's done, right? So such a great video. They posted it up on their page, and within a couple of weeks, or a couple of months, I should say, they had 14 million views organically. 14 million views organically. The video I showed you, we actually sped it up and put music against it, but this was actually created by the hotel. I mean, for them to get that amount of traffic, and what they wanted to do is they wanted to tell the story of the hotel, what's happening behind the scenes. After this, they've tried to replicate this and tell the stories about what happens when there's lost and found products in your hotel room. It hasn't been as successful, but who cares? Because this video was successful, and they got a lot of engagement, as you could see here. Over 250,000 shares, 5,000 comments as well. So with that being said, content marketing, it shouldn't be it shouldn't be challenging for you to do. If you have a cell phone and can capture some content, I would say to be creative with it, because that's how you're going to get the most engagement. And that's all I have to talk about today. I hope you've learned something from my presentation. Thank you.